Hi, I'm Wayne Morrow with Matter of Action. Lots of buzz about the Convention of States again. Um, Boy, it's always on the topic, at least that we hear out in the field. You hear about the balanced budget, you hear about term limits, and you have to be a lawyer to understand the Constitution. Watch this clip.
Scalia talked about a constitutional convention.
Look up the definition of that word in the law
No,
dictionary.
convention of states. Look,
He knows the law dictionary term to use it
yeah,
accordingly.
yes. I think Scalia knows the difference between a constitutional convention and a convention of states. And if you suggest it doesn't,
By a law dictionary definition, which he would be using, go look it up. It actually uses Article 5.
Hold on one second. I understand you're not a lawyer. See, lawyers don't use law dictionaries. See, we understand
No,
the
they
definition.
use
the
of
terms of art.
They use them
terms of art.
according to context in
Right.
terms of art.
Right.
I understand that you quote blacks and you think you know the law dictionary.
It's the definition of the term.
You're not a lawyer.
So, if you watch that, I have as a guest on our program is Robert Brown, who, by the way, is not an attorney, so we can trust him to tell the truth, right? Good morning, Robert.
Good morning. Thanks for having me this morning.
Robert is a trusted friend, but also a scholar of the Constitution, always in front of the COS crowd. And he had a recent encounter with the COS team, Meckler and Centurium now. And I just wanted him to bring on board a little bit what he learned, and then maybe take a little poison out of the air about really what's the truth versus the fiction. So, Robert, I know I put that clip out front about you're not an attorney. And of course, the Founding Fathers are all attorneys, right? Of course. I know there's a few in there, but not many. So as we face this issue about balancing the budget, about term limits, that's the ones they hone in on, and we're going to call the convention because it's okay. The Congress is going to call it. And the states are going to apply. It's all going to be great. It's not going to go out of control. And we got our arms around it. And, so knowing that is what happens. What are some of the maybe talking points for a member when they run into the COS people? Because I think we have to crystallize the talking points opposing the distortions and lies that they're telling.
Well, certainly. Well, the first thing I want to address is the whole Robert Brown's not an attorney. And yes, gratefully, I am not an attorney. If you want to understand the Constitution, you don't go study law. If you go to law school, they're going to teach you case law, what the Supreme Court has distorted the Constitution to try to make it mean. If you want to understand the Constitution, you need to study history. You need to study the notes from Madison from the 1787 Convention, Federalist Papers, things like that. And, one thing, Scalia wrote an opinion, majority opinion, I forget what the case was called, in which he talked about the Constitution was written in the language of the common man, not in legalese. It was designed for the common man to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they say you have to be a lawyer, they're trying to shove us out, trying to shove the common man out from understanding the Constitution. And really, they're implying that in order to understand this whole convention topic, only lawyers could possibly understand this. So most state legislators aren't even qualified to vote on it if you'd have to be a lawyer to understand this. So they have a kind of a catch-22 there in their own argument.
Yeah.
Last week, I probably did what's probably going to be the only debate with Mark Meckler that'll ever happen.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it wasn't public. I caught him in the halls in the state capitol in Iowa, and with Rick Santorum, we had a discussion.
Yep.
And I guess that video clip is part of that.
Yep. It was.
But he reiterated at least twice that he will never debate me in public. This, even though last year, Montana Senate leadership issued a formal invitation to Mark Meckler to debate me. They sent it certified mail and everything. He flatly refuses, no matter who asks, no matter who wants to see an actual debate between the two sides.
Wouldn't you think that'd be easy since you're not an attorney? It should be
Right.
very easy,
He should
right?
be able to easily destroy me, of course.
Absolutely.
But he seems to be very afraid of the idea of debate. I don't know, maybe if I put out there an offer that if he wins the debate, I'll donate $10,000 to Convention of States or something like that. And vice versa. If he loses, I want him to donate $10,000 to the John Birch Society, which would be marvelous.
Right.
I'd be happy to do that. In fact, let's make that official right now. I'll put out $10,000 wager. Whoever wins the debate, the other one has to donate to their organization of choice.
Okay.
Something of that nature. But it's never going to happen. He knows he'll lose, and I even told him so. He didn't deny it. last week when he said that'll never happen. I know you know you'll lose, and so you never want to debate.
Right.
The real issue, though, is that they're trying to get this through with emotional appeal. We've got to save the country. We've got to do something. But when it comes down to talking about facts and evidence and historical precedent, they don't want to go there because that's where they lose. That's not the ground upon which they can win because the facts don't support their arguments. A convention cannot be limited to what the state what the state legislators tried to limit it to. There have been so many cases in state conventions as well as the 1787 National Convention.
Yeah, which you read the history as I mentioned, but their biggest point of contention is the way we're going to balance a budget is have a con, or we have to get rid of those lifelong politicians by term limits. But I know of recent they're talking about we have to get back our country. We're growing broke. They're spending money like crazy, and we need a balanced budget. That's really going to happen. He, as a members face COS people in the hallways, what would be a good maybe retort to that? Because we know that's a lie. There's never been an instance where, by any legislation, you need to balance the budget. Matter of fact, they've just filed a Constitution. They would balance the budget. Yeah. But aside from that, what's probably a good argument or retort for our members if they're faced with some of those? Because I know they're pretty rabid about those two things.
Right. One of the best arguments I've ever seen came from Convention of States Attorney Robert Kelly in Boise a few years ago, when he was asked, so once you get these amendments you're proposing, if they still don't follow them, like they're not following the Constitution now, what do we do at that point?
Right.
And his response was, it's going to require millions of activists to help enforce the Constitution. And then the follow-up question was, well, then why don't we do that now?
Yeah.
Because like you were just saying, as the Constitution now is written, as it now says, federal spending is supposed to be limited to the enumerated powers. That would not only balance the budget, that would bring us down to about 20% of current spending levels, probably even lower than that now, considering how high they've gotten. Sure. And you'd have over a $2 trillion surplus annually. That's far better than just balancing the budget. You'd get the federal government back in its box.
Right.
So why don't we do that now? As I've demonstrated with my Power of 500 video, just a few hundred people is sufficient to put enough pressure on your congressman to get them to start following the Constitution. If we do that in enough congressional districts around the country, they will balance the budget now.
Right.
One of my favorite conversations I've ever had, I had a couple of years ago, I got to sit down with Tim Griffin, Lieutenant Governor in Arkansas. He's a former congressman. He said the most important thing he learned in Congress was that Congress is actually very responsive to the will of their constituents, which he had never suspected. Take the balanced budget example. People feel like, yeah, we want the balanced budget. Why aren't Congress pushing for this balanced budget? See, they're not listening. He said, no. Yes, the people want the balanced budget, but they don't want it more than they want their federal programs. And the moment that changes and a balanced budget becomes top priority, Congress will immediately champion the cause of a balanced budget. That's the problem. It's the people don't really want it more than the various federal programs that they're addicted to. That's one of the best retorts. We need to fix the people. We don't need to change the Constitution.
Correct.
We need to change our demand for all these federal handouts and federal programs.
Right. And the Birch Society, that's what we do. We have to educate the electorate to have constitutional-minded representatives. And we have that tool on our website, Act Now, jbs.org, that actually address some of those things, And you're exactly right. Activate the membership, which we do through our chapters around the United States. But you're right, education is really important. And it's amazing how the state legislators believe the lie, but they're in the face, they're being propagandized continually, and our members are there, far and few, but they're dedicated to make it happen. Actually changed the minds of some of the legislators. Hey, we ran out of time already, so a good place to go check out some information is on our website, jbs.org, because we have information about the con. All that information you talked about is history, current legislation, and the tools that we need to make it happen. You do a great job out there promoting the Constitution. I know you're not an attorney. That's why I trust you. And
thank you.
And maybe you'll get that debate sooner or later, Robert. Thank you so much. Until next time, your action does matter.